Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art, and culture. And today we're going to be talking about the new album from Hurray for the Riff Raff, titled Small Town Heroes. You know, for being the only country music critic on YouTube, I haven't really covered a true country record in quite some time now. Hell, I haven't even really talked about the state of modern bro country for a while. That used to be part of my general purview. Well, believe it or not, there's actually a reason for why I haven't really covered country music. Mostly because it seems to be in a profoundly confused place right now. The leading acts of the bro country wave seem to be running as fast as they possibly can towards something remotely close to neo-traditional country, while those that are actually sticking around seem to be getting actively more belligerent and somehow getting even worse. And look, while I do mostly like Maggie and Tay's Girl and Country song for its wit and charm, I'm not taking anything away from the song, you can tell they're being pushed by Big Machine in order to play both sides of the equation here, both bro country and anti-bro country. And that's not even touching on the more electronic-inspired edges creeping into country, courtesy of Jason Aldean and Sam Hunt, neither of which sound remotely close to cohesive or anything close to good. It's gotten so bad where Hope You Get Lonely Tonight, arguably the worst song from Cole Swindle's self-titled album, an album which I might stress is on my short list of the worst albums of the year thus far, that song's starting to rise up the charts. God help us all. So, you know what, on second thought, let's completely ignore whatever's happening in the mainstream and talk about a country record that I've got a couple of requests for that came out earlier this year, from an act that's the furthest thing from mainstream polish. Now, this band is titled Hurray for the Riff Raff, a stripped-down, borderline acoustic, folk and southern gothic-inspired group who gathered a fair bit of buzz after their very solid 2012 release titled Look Out Mama, which I really liked for its grimy mix and the exposed edges in the production. But while the band might have some traditional elements in its instrumentation and production, and frontwoman Alinda Lisa Guerra's voice, Hurray for the Riff Raff lies significantly further to the left side of any political spectrum, both in promoting a very queer-friendly image and singing about some loaded political subjects in their material, which you don't typically see in country music these days. Now that, if anything else, is enough to attract my interest, even if it took me way too long to actually get to them and cover this album. So anyway, after releasing a Kickstarter-funded album titled My Dearest Darkest Neighbor, they released a new album in their major label debut titled Small Town Heroes earlier this year. So I finally took the time in the doldrums of summer to check this album out. How is it? Well, it's pretty good. Let me stress this, but it's also an album that takes a step precisely in the opposite direction that I normally like hearing in bands like these, because it definitely isn't difficult to spot that Hurray for the Riff Raff signed to a major label with this release, especially in the production and the mix balance. And just like the shit between Jason Eady's When the Money's All Gone to AM Country Heaven, you can get a solid record here that just might have lost a very hint of that texture that I really did love on that previous release. That's not saying that Small Town Heroes is bad by any stretch of the mind, far from it. The comparison to Jason Eady, who released one of my favorite albums thus far this year, indicates how much I like this album, but at the same time, I can't help but feel that it could have been a little bit stronger, could have been a little bit tighter here. So okay, let's get this production issues out of the way first right now. Now, the first thing to keep in mind is that Look Out Mama showed an edge of grime and ramshackle roughness to its production and style that complemented Segura's voice very effectively, and the songwriting was just detailed enough to create a very vivid picture of the ragged New Orleans neighborhoods that inspired many of those songs. But here, the instrumentation and production balance has been a little bit cleaned up, still showing some of the edges on the guitar work, but it's a little bit cleaner, the drumming a little bit less ruckus, the addition of keyboards and broader instrumentation showing more varied color, but not as much texture. It's really in the slower, more stripped back songs where that texture comes back to the forefront, which is a welcome sign, like with the sandy percussion on Good Time Blues and Outlaw's Lament, the lonely guitars on the new San Francisco Bay Blues, the ragged organ and guitar on Saint Rock Blues, and on the title track, and the violin supporting the very lonely Forever Just for a Day. And let me stress that these melodies here, they're very good, slow, and achingly beautiful in painting their pictures. But the more upbeat tracks, they just completely falter on this record. A little bit too garish, a little bit too overstated. They just come across as a little too broad for me. They just don't work. To be fair, my issues with the production, they aren't really complaints, because really, what they're doing on this record in terms of production makes a certain amount of sense, especially with regards to the vocal production. Segura's voice has always been one of the biggest drawing points for this band, after all. Soulful, worn, mature, and holding a lot of quiet dignity and power behind it that never really comes across as overwrought, which is really quite impressive. Thus, moving her forward in the mix, adding some tasteful reverb along with it, it makes a lot of sense, and it helps that Segura is still a very emotionally evocative performer. Now, I can't say that I was ever really a fan of the male backing vocals that come in on No One Else, and I know it's wrong, but that's alright. But you know what? That's honestly a minor nitpick on a song that actually has a really clipped guitar solo that just sounds a lot more awkward and forced than any backing vocals. But you know what? You don't move the vocals more to the front of the mix if the songwriting's not important here. So let's dig into some lyrics and themes. And you know what? I'll give it to Hurray for the Riff Raff. There's a lot of solid quality here that I did like. Sure, you get your lighter or less substantial songs like Blue Ridge Mountain or the very much laid-back Crash on the Highway, a song about appreciating life now given you could have been in that pileup that's left you stuck in traffic right now. But it's in more of the somber songs that Segura really shows a lot of her songwriting chops. Good Time Blues and Outlaw's Lament talks about the loneliness of just being stuck in jail as the outlaw gets golder with the girl so far away. The New San Francisco Bay Blues shows the narrator hiking along the side of the road from a broken down van, symbolic of the breaking relationship that she's struggling with right now. And Forever Is Just a Day is a song about mourning lost connections, both in a one-night stand and in those moments of euphoria with friends that just seem to slip away. And that's not counting some of Segura's more politically angled songs. The one that's gotten the most press and attention is The Body Electric, a title based on the Walt Whitman poem. Almost an anti-murder ballad, as a friend finds the dead girl and finds a way to commit her revenge, but not through violence, but by viciously emasculating the man's dependence on violence and his insecurities here, and by saying how this could easily happen to his daughter. But you know what? There are other standouts on this album too. Saint Rock Blues paints a bloody picture of living in a neighborhood consumed by violence that would probably hold very resonant for some people living in major cities today. And the title track goes into the very uncomfortable family drama of a girl addicted to heroin thrown out by her father. And then goes the extra steps in both showing her loneliness and his heart-wrenching guilt as he knows that his love would be taken advantage of if he were to let her come back into his house and into his life as she would continue using. It's an emotionally complicated song, and you know what? The song is damn near brilliant in how they pull it off. So okay, let's go a little bit deeper. What about themes? Honestly, it's a little hard to tell. Segura has gone on record saying that his material is intended to be very earnest, striking against the common brand of disillusionment that crops up in all new generations, particularly ours as we're around the same age, and yet she doesn't shy away from painting very vivid, very lonely pictures, and songs where it gets hard not to become disillusioned. And that's probably what I like most about the framing on this album. She shows how she's seeking those good moments, those connections, how they can bring so much relief, and yet she's all too aware that these moments they pass away or they're hard to sustain against trying times and violence, and yet we have to keep trying all the same. Despite the darkness, despite the loneliness that is held by her small town heroes, somehow they keep pressing on. So yeah, let me stress, I'm definitely happy I checked out this album. While I can't say I love it, mostly courtesy of some production choices that just proved a little bit exasperating, and I think there are a couple moments on this record that are a little bit too overwrought and overdone, this is a damn solid album that is definitely worth your time. I'm thinking a strong 7 out of 10 and a definite recommendation if you want to check out this album. If you're looking for some stripped back, soulful, and truly intelligent country folk from the outskirts of the genre. I'm not quite certain it's as solid as their 2012 album, but it's damn close. So go check out Small Town Heroes. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you'd like to like and subscribe, I'd be more than grateful. If there's anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, or are there any other albums coming out this year that you want me to take a look at, I'd be more than happy to give them a listen. Until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.